Hey there, this is Jenny Chen. I'm the founder of 3D Heals. Welcome to the latest podcast, the official podcast for 3D Heals. This is where you will find fun but in-depth conversations with technological game changers, creative minds, entrepreneurs, rule breakers, and more, focusing on how we can use 3D technologies like 3D printing and bioprinting to reinvent healthcare and even life sciences. This podcast will also include AMA or Ask Me Anything sessions, past Instagram live interviews with influencers, and other direct engagements with our tribe. We can get started this time. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Who we have today is Dr. Matteo Zanfabro. I hope I'm, again, pronouncing your name right. He is a doctor of veterinary medicine, graduated just recently in 2017 from University of Parma, Italy. And Matteo has been applying 3D printing for veterinary practices ever since 2015, so while you were a student. And he also has his experimental thesis is called The Use of 3D Printing in Preoperative Surgical Planning in Animals, I'm assuming. And he founded a private research project named 3D Veterinary Printing, focusing on clinical application of these technologies. In 2018, he won MSD Community Award for 3D Vet Project. In 2019 to 2020, he was the research fellow at the OU Diagnostic Imaging at the University of Parma. He focused on technological transfer of plate cast system, which we should talk a little bit about. And now he's a member of R&D at PlayVet, which is a new company branch that designed and produced 3D printed, made-to-measure veterinary medical devices, which we should also talk a little bit about. So Matteo, thank you so much for joining us today. I think before I have all these questions about just from the little information from your bio, I love to just hear your journey. We will also always want to invite people to Instagram Live to share who they are, who are these people behind these amazing images and cases. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you become a veterinary doctor? And then how did you become interested in 3D printing?
Okay. Thank you very much for the interview. And I fell in love with 3D printing when I was in the third year of university. We studied 5 years in order to become a veterinary physician. And before falling in love with 3D printing, I fell in love with radiology. So I started first with I was very passionate about CT scans. So I started to understand how voxels works and 3D stuff works, and after I heard about an application from human medicine where they were using 3D printing to understand the anatomy before the surgical operation, and I proposed an experimental thesis, and we started from the third year of university to do this kind of stuff. So I always worked with these kind of things, and my first love is radiology. So that's why I started to understand it, to use 3D printing.
I share that same passion. As you know, I'm also a radiologist myself, but I'd like to hear your thought on, because your patients are different from mine. Mine follow instructions, and they also about the same size. So why don't you tell a little bit of any, just facts to share with us? What are the differences of, radiology for animals versus radiology for humans?
Basically, it's the same. The only difference is that we have to use anesthesia. Basically, all animals when they are put in the CT scans, MRI, they are always under anesthesia, and it's a little bit different with X-rays because you can usually leave them be without sedation or anesthesia. It depends on the kind of animal, the character basically, and that's the thing. The other things are basically the same because we use the same machines and we use the same. It's the same workflow. The only difference is that, and you have to do anesthesia and sedation, so it's a little bit longer, basically, also for X-rays especially, and we use also machines that are not so performing like yours. So basically, the first 2 years of practice, I used a one slice CT scanner, which was, yes.
One slice.
One slice. It was very, very difficult to do the segmentation. So we had, I used to work with, strictly work with the people in CT scans, because if we wanted a model, we have to do the exam in a different way. So that's what the problem. But with you know, not one slice scanners, basically the one you can use now, it's very easy to do the segmentation. So that is this is not a problem anymore. I think we were the only one who was still using one slice.
I cannot believe that you're still using one slice. I mean, that takes an hour just to scan a head or something like that, right? It's super slow.
Yes. You have to understand that basically animals don't have brains, not like ours.
Oh, that's true.
That's a very tiny part, and you prefer to use the MRI for that kind of thing, also in veterinary medicine. And also the size of the animals are smaller. So one slice, it's not so bad as it seems, but it was very old. So the fact it was very difficult to use and to be very fast in doing your things, and you also have the anesthesia problem. So you have to do it very, very quickly. And but it's not a problem anymore. Now we have in Parma, they have now a 20 or 30 slice CT scan. I don't remember the numbers, so it's basically a new category to do works.
Yeah, guys, I don't want to, dwell on imaging, but imaging is important because that's basically the data acquisition for 3D printing. So if you have garbage in, you're going to have garbage out. Yes. So we need to have really high imaging quality. So I have additional questions is these, it sounds like you're working with small animals, not elephant. So
yes.
Do you have a smaller size of CT scanner, or is it regular size human size?
Sometimes for exotics, it is possible to use cone beam technology. So they use the dental one. I don't like to call it that way, but it's another, it's another technology, and the cost is lower, and so they can have a good imaging without the problems that you have with a bigger, CT scanner or something like that. I prefer the mainstream, right? Yeah. But it is possible to use also other machines to do the same thing for animals that are smaller.
Awesome. And the resolution of the current 20 slicer, is that enough for your 3D printing, or you think it can be improved?
It can be, of course, improved, and at the moment I'm not working anymore there, so basically I don't know. We are not working a lot with that machines, but I worked with 16 slice or more slice, so, and as you said, if you have garbage in, you have garbage out. It's the same or the contrary. So if you have a good quality on imaging, segmentation is basically automatic. I think basically you can work, you can design a better model, but basically if you have a good quality, a good raw data, you can do your stuff quickly.
So I think a couple of weeks ago we had a 3D printing for veterinary practice webinar. a lot of the cases are focusing on orthopedics in animals, especially small animals. So that's for bone. That's focusing on bone. Are you guys also, working on segmentation for soft tissues and 3D printing soft tissue models as well?
No, I have the same experience. Basically, you want a 3D model for bones, basically, but it's a matter of surgeon, not from radiologist. We can basically print everything, but if you don't have a physician, a surgeon that wants to use that model, this doesn't work. So basically, we are doing bone because most surgeons want to try this thing on bones.
Right. And
That's
also, do you guys, just one last question from a radiologist like myself, is do you inject contrast to some of your CTs?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's the same thing, basically.
It's the same thing. We started, not me in general, veterinary practice with radiology and CT scanning is based on human experience. So we have the same rules. It changed, of course, something, but basically it's the same.
That's super awesome. That's such a fascinating field in itself. Like, I want to learn how to read a dog anatomy at some point. It's just so fascinating. Now let's shift the gear towards more 3D printing. I want to learn a little bit more about your journey in 3D printing. How did you encounter it? Who exposed you to this technology, and how did you find your way in, basically?
As I said, I started with experimental thesis, and I did some workshops from some resellers, Italian resellers with 3D printers, and I first starting with imaging and starting with 3D imaging, I first learned how to design things on 3D with basically Mesh Mixer, but I also tried Rhinoceros, Fusion. I had some experience with other softwares, and I still prefer Mesh Mixer. And after we did few cases for the thesis, so after this experience, I graduated, and the surgeon who tried first the thing asked me for other models. So I decided to build this project in order to make colleagues understand how it works and to build a sort of network, a little network, and it worked because I had many experience not only in orthopedics but oromaxillofacial surgeries. And of course, with university, it was possible to do some models for students, basically, and for the teaching of anatomy and that kind of thing.
Yeah, awesome. And I know you brought us a couple of cases. You want to show us some of those?
Yes, I reprinted something because I want to show you. This is my favorite because it's the strangest thing I ever done. And it is a kangaroo. I don't remember the species, if it was a wallaby or it was another thing. And he had, or she had, because she was a she. She had a lot of problems with dental abscesses. As you see, it was basically a hole everywhere. And this model was requested in order to understand the anatomy, because basically in Italy you do not have so many kangaroos that run everywhere, and you have to do something on the mouth. So they asked me that, and it was very, very, very interesting. And my first cases was a hip made for the surgeons in order to correct the trauma the dog had with the car.
This is the dog hip. Okay.
Yes. Sorry. Yes, this is a and the very interesting thing in veterinary medicine is that you go from you have all different sizes. This is the tiniest thing I ever done. It is a cat. Mm-hmm. It's very, 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 very little. And the biggest one I ever done, it's this, and it was a dog for orthopedics. So you can understand that it's very important to understand how you work on bone, and the same surgeon have to face these cases and this one. So 3D printing could be very, very useful for understand the anatomy, for test the surgical approach, and we had other cases, but not pre-operative surgical planning, but also only for tests for surgical oncology. I did this one, so it's
yeah. Can you explain to us a little anatomy here, because I don't think everybody understands what we're looking at.
Yes, this is a cat, okay, and these are the orbits, okay. It is cut completely on that side, and this was the tumor.
I see.
So the thing was to understand how a double extrusion 3D printer could help these kind of surgeons, these specific surgeons, to prepare eventually a surgery, and the surgical approach is very narrow in that kind of surgery. So you have to understand if you have the space to do something. So that was the approach to this kind of stuff. But it was only for a study. It's not something that we really employed in surgical field. The only thing we had. Basically, my experience is on orthopedics and oromaxillofacial surgery. That's the two main things that I did on patients. And of course, I had for anatomy, for bone anatomy, and visceral anatomy for the students and other things. But basically, on pre-operative surgical planning is only bone, in my experience.
And for the pre-surgical planning applications that you're talking about, are they limited to just modeling, or do you also have surgical guides and maybe even going into implants?
No, I did only the pre-operative surgical thing because my competence was there. Mm-hmm. It is possible to design surgical guides, but first you have to, if you don't have the surgeon, you cannot do that. So you need a surgeon that wants to try this and helps you understand where you have to put the screws and all the other things in the digital one before going in 3D printing. It is possible, but no one ever asked me to do that, because it's very difficult sometimes to make them understand how it works and how this could change your workflow, and that's the problem. Mm-hmm. You have to change your workflow in order to be effective with 3D printing. So this is the main difficulty that I ever encountered in my field. That's the thing.
Yeah. So just on the anatomical 3D model side, how is the response from the surgeons that you gave this model? I mean, I'm assuming they're buying the models. No?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So that means that they want it. But my question is there like some particular cases that the surgeon really like? You know, you kind of get a feedback on where the largest market is.
I think the real difference in surgery with 3D printing is made on oromaxillofacial surgery, and I have the best experience from the best feedbacks from surgeons from that kind of field, and this is because it's a very complicated thing to do in general, and it's very complicated also to understand it on 2D dimensions instead of other kind of pathologies or orthopedics where you are, it's a habit to do it with 2D reference like X-ray, so 3D is not always the best choice, instead of oromaxillofacial surgery where X-rays are completely it's not very good to perform surgeries with only X-rays. So if you have a CT scan, you use a CT scan, and also that image, it's not very clear and not very easy to understand. So with a 3D printed model, they can, I don't know, they change completely the way they feel on the field. So they are more comfortable, and this change also the emotion that they prove during the surgery, and they are very safe, they feel safe. So that's the main thing on oromaxillofacial surgery.
So now you have graduated for a couple years. I'm assuming that you're practicing as a veterinary doctor. Is it private practice, or you are part of the company that you were talking about, the Play Vet?
No, I used to practice until now I have a full position in the company, so I'm not practicing now. But I think in the future I will return to the field because I missed my clinical thing, clinical cases. And but at the moment my work is here in Playcast under Playvet, so the veterinary part. And we are combining these two things because for some kind of applications I have to 3D print from CT scanners, and I have for example an example that I can show you. We treated this cat, which was she has a very
that's a cat tail right there. Is that a tail in the bottom? Is that a tail, or what is that?
Oh, this is the thorax. The head is here. The tail is here, like that. And this is the sternum. So
sternum. Okay, so
it was a severe case of pectus excavatum.
Wow.
And with Playcast, we designed a sort of thing for the cat in order to being able to pull the sternum with wires, and all that thing was designed on a precise position. So every week the cat was wearing this, so it's like a splint, is a 3D printed splint with the places for the mechanical thing that was pulling the wires. So every week, without sedation, without anesthesia, we were able to pull the wires in order to make the sternum stay on the ventral aspect, okay, of the thorax. And the cat were this for 4 weeks, I remember, and all went well. Okay, and
wait, why do the cats need to wear a cast?
Because you have to use the natural growth of the cat in order to correct that thing, that disorder, and without the spleen, this wasn't possible. And the cat suffered from continuously respiratory crisis, and it needed oxygen therapy and that kind of thing. And with the splint, all this was gone, and we were very happy because it's very difficult to make all these steps once one another. And we performed the CT scan. We used the CT scans for print the model. We designed the splint following surgeon instructions for the case, and we put it on the cat, and it was fantastic. It was one of my favorite cases.
So I just want to clarify, make sure that I understand. The cat has some kind of chest deformity.
Yes.
And then the surgeon went in to correct the deformity, and then the cast did the surgeon go in to correct the chest cavity, or
no? The surgeons only needed to pass the wires
okay,
over the sternum. Okay, it is too tiny to do anything. The aorta was basically sleeping on the cyclodeal process, so that was a problem. And the thing is that we use 3D printing to prepare the surgery. That's the point. And also we use 3D printing to produce the splint that needed to correct that.
Got it. So first is a pre-surgical planning for you to place the wire correctly. And then 2 is also to design some kind of cast to correct after the surgery over time.
Yes, exactly.
Almost like a dental aligner in a way, isn't it?
It's something like that. Yes. It's you have to guarantee the tension in time, and that thing was possible with this kind of approach. And you can when you have to do this kind of stuff, you build your own spleen with what you have in clinics. You do not prepare this so precisely. And our goal was to demonstrate that you can use a CT scanner, a normal exam that you always do to diagnose this problem, to perform all these steps only with a computer design CAD software and a 3D printer. That was the workflow. And we still use it with Playvet. This is the goal of the branch.
Yeah, so going back to, one of the questions I asked you about whether or not you're practicing, the main reason I want to ask you is, how often do you think normal, ordinary vet would start use 3D printing to treat their patients? Does it make economic sense to either do it themselves or send it out for someone else to do it?
At the moment, I don't know. The sense if they have the possibility and they understand how to use it, they ask me. But the thing is to catch their attention and make them understand it's something that is possible to do, and it is not something that is only on human medicine or it is only on research thing. It's something that you can use today. And my models are not so expensive. It's 100, 200 euros for a basic size, so it's not so expensive. I use low-cost 3D printers, low-cost material. It's all my work is very low cost, so it's not something related to the cost of the model. It's something related to the workflow they use. So that's the thing. They have to understand how this thing could be employed in their workflow and in their reality. When they understand that they can, there's no problem. They decide to try, in my experience.
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously an early adopter, and I think I'm also an early adopter as well. And also, you're very entrepreneur, I can tell, because you just joined us. I'm assuming Playcast is a startup.
Yes, Playcast is it's a human field startup. Yes.
How did you become part of that team?
I tried for a few times to produce prosthetics, okay, orthotics and prosthetics for animals, and it was very complicated, very complicated. And I found Playcast on web, and they use technology that allows you to map the 3D surface of the skin in order to make that surface a model that you can put on CAD software and work on it and build something. And we began to know each other for that contact, and after they decided to try the same technology on veterinary field in order to understand if it was possible to do the same thing that used to do in the human field in veterinary practice. So we began I don't remember, 1 year, 2 years ago, to work together with a fellowship in the university, and now they hired me because we are continuing to push this thing on the field, and it is very interesting. It's a very good project, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the trends that we're observing is that, you know, we are treating our pets and animals better and better over the time. Do you think the market is there right now for products like PlayVet or even just 3D printing in vet at a larger scale?
I think yes. I believe in this because this is my work, so I believe the market is here. The thing is that you have to. It's difficult to understand this question. We do not have to exaggerate with treatments in general, but there's no reason to not treat what we can already treat like humans. The workflow is the same. I don't believe that there are two medicines. There's only one medicine. So maybe the money is different, maybe the emotional thing of course, humans instead of animals is different, but we use the same instruments and technology is everywhere. So why we should not do that? There's nothing to do with that. I really believe that we are in the right place in the right time for this.
I agree with you. So we're approaching the end of our interview, and I ask you to share with us what is your immediate future planning, the next step you're going to do, maybe even longer time. Feel free to share with us.
My goal is to continue this kind of thing with startup because I like this work and I like to contribute to the design and all the workflows that are very uncommon for me because I used to work on clinical fields, so I like really much this thing. And the other thing is I wanted to return to clinical field, not 100 times, maybe only a percentage of my work, and I want to return to radiology because it's my first love and I will always love radiology. And I'm really fascinated by AI in general, or application of AI, and also to augmented reality, which is something very cool, and it's also related to 3D imaging and 3D technology. So in order to project things on patients, you have always to do the segmentation, and the workflow is the same. It's not very different. So these are the fields that I really would to touch in some way in the future, always being part of Playcast, PlayVet, startups thing, and the work I'm doing now because I really enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I enjoy listening about your stories and your work. I also have some good news for you. We have actually 2 upcoming webinars, one focusing on AI and 3D printing, and the other one is AR, VR. So I welcome everybody to join those. Thank you very much, Matteo, for this wonderful interview today. I look forward to seeing more of your great posts.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye. That's it for this episode. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 3D Heals, and check out the links in the show notes. See you next time.